It's approximately 430 degrees out here right now. And what I have here is the Emax Ready-to-Fly Kit for the TinyHawk Freestyle, TinyHawk Freestyle 2. I've already done a review video on this one, and it's pretty fun, pretty good. That's going to be in the link in the description below. But here we have a Ready-to-Fly Kit, and what's really interesting about Emax is that the group, as I keep saying, the group that really manages their marketing and everything, they are normal people like you and I from the community. And so they emailed me and asked me if I even wanted this thing, because it's not something that I would generally be interested in. And a couple people have asked me why I continue to be interested in these things. So things like this that are ready to fly are very intriguing to me, because what we do is so complicated and so complex from a beginner standpoint, not once you're used to it, that this sort of thing is really hard to get right. And I'm going to kind of cut all the fat out of this and just jump right into whether I think this is useful for a beginner or for anybody that doesn't really know what they're doing. And the metric I'm going to use for that is, can you just take this out of the box, even as somebody that's experienced, and just fly it? And so that's actually a really hard metric to hit. So let's go through it. I have actually flown it once. I gave it to a friend to open it and give it a shot, and they were able to get it up and running. So let's take a look at it. So this is the quad, and of the components that are quad oriented, this thing has the dual 1S connector on there. It comes with the 1S charger, which is really nice, but I'm just not a fan of this dual 1S connector, just because it's just frustrating to use, because it kind of runs into the props all the time. And so while I'm fiddling with this thing, I will tell you, actually, to get it to actually work properly, you have to sort of plug one in, get that in there, and then get the other one on there so that you can actually get it to plug in properly. Very frustrating. So the goggles themselves is what I'm going to first talk about. The goggles are totally functional. There's really nothing negative to be said about the goggles, other than it's a cheap pair of goggles. It runs on an 18650 cell, which is really super nice, actually, that it has an 18650 cell. The screen is obviously not the highest resolution, but I mean, it's 100% usable, 100% usable. So I give them like a total pass on the goggles. The real question mark is the controller, and this isn't a new controller. We've seen this controller before. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but then again, when you hold it, I mean, it looks just funny when you hold it, but when you hold it in your hand and you feel the sticks, they feel really like not good. But you can actually pinch this thing pretty reasonably well. And so let's give it a shot. Let's put it together and give it a shot. Let's see. I'm going to be using my own goggles. I'm not going to be using the Emax goggles. I've used them before. They're totally suitable. But let's give this thing a fly and see how it is with this controller. And this is really the metric, whether can be flown properly with this controller. There are different modes here on this switch up here, but I'm going to leave it in acro mode, and I didn't actually change the name on this because I haven't plugged it into Betaflight. And one thing I'll say right off the bat is they got this right. You turn on the quad, the video channel on the goggles is the same as the quad, and you turn on the controller and you can arm the thing. So this is already a win in my book for Emax, because these are the most difficult things usually for a beginner to understand what they have to do. So let's actually try to fly this thing. I'm going to be flying in pinching mode because I'm not a thumber. Oh shoot. There we go. That's acro mode. Ooh, shoot. Okay. So this has been flown once before already, and we changed the rates. So the controller is really wonky. It's just not that great of a controller, but it is usable. The rates that it comes with, I'm really confused by why they keep putting these weird wonky rates. I mean, I don't know who's putting these rates on this thing, but if they just used default Betaflight, it would work better, because that's what I have on here. They're 100% default rates, and the controller works way better with these default rates. So the quad is performing as expected, totally fine, and that's to be totally expected. The real question here is whether the controller is worth anything to be used. And it's usable. I mean, I do have 5-6+ years experience flying under my belt, and the controller is not the best, but it is definitely usable. Now, would a beginner really be able to manage it? I definitely think that the rates that it comes with on default is not that great, and I do think it makes it much more difficult to fly. But I also wouldn't really recommend this to a beginner. I would recommend a simulator. The good news is that this controller does actually work on simulators, which is a very big benefit. It does have a USB port on it. Otherwise, the quad is great. I mean, I've already gotten pretty used to the controller. The biggest issue is that it has a really wide dead band, like in the middle. So it's just wonky to just use because it really does nothing, and then it just jumps on you when you start giving it inputs. But overall, it's definitely usable. I do think there are better cost-effective controllers on the market. The Beta FPV one, although they have had some quality control issues with that, unfortunately. I honestly give this, I mean, Emax is one of the few companies in the industry that you can actually trust, unlike many others that just don't really respect anybody else in the industry. And I'm really trying to be super impartial here, but I would really give this like a C+ rating in terms of usability out of the box. And that's honestly really good because there aren't a lot of products like this that you can just take out of the box. It's got everything in there. It's really cost effective, and it just works. So, I mean, kudos to Emax, but it's upsetting that our industry is still at this level where nobody has put together a really foolproof package, and that's because you cannot put together a foolproof package. It's just not possible because we just we just haven't gotten the code and everything together to be able to put together a nice foolproof package easily. Like, it's still difficult, and I wouldn't even recommend somebody buy one of these things if they're not experienced. If you buy a ready-to-fly anything, you should be playing a simulator first, and that is my very best advice. And that's pretty much a universally accepted way to start these days, is by first flying simulators for a while. And once you're done with simulators and you're decent and you have the controls, you know, in your brain, then give it a shot and you're good to go. So that's it for this review. I hope it was helpful. And I mean, again, I'm really interested in these kinds of products because they really do bring more people into the market. I just wish we had a better user experience to offer new people that want to start these things. Take care. Floss your teeth. Bye.